Welcome to the Happy Market Research Podcast, your favorite place for strategies, stories, and insights from the world of market research. Brought to you by your host, Dan Fleetwood.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Happy Market Research Podcast. We have a very special one today. I think I might say that every time, but today I really mean it, with special guest Tim Sanders. Tim, welcome to the podcast. And for those that don't know you, can you give a little introduction around yourself, your background? I know we could probably be here for a while. You've done a lot, from writing books to AI to now at G2, but give us a brief introduction about yourself before we get started here.
First of all, glad to be with you. Tim Sanders. I'm Vice President Research Insights at G2. G2 is the leading software marketplace. We're best known as the place you go read reviews before you make a purchase. And at the company, I head up AI research as well as the reports that we publish, including the most recent one, the 2025 Buyer Behavior Report. I've written 5 books. My first book, Love is the Killer App, is the one I'm known the most for, and it is about the act of knowledge sharing, like what we're doing right now. I'm also an executive fellow at Harvard's Digital Data Design Institute, which you think of that as their research labs on AI. I come by the research bug quite honestly. My first research lab was at Yahoo at the turn of the century. It was called the Value Lab. I was a college competitive debater, and I was known to be a library rat.
Awesome. That's a great introduction.
That's a nerd's version of a gym rat.
I love it. And I do. Love is a Killer App was a great book. Just a quick plug. If you haven't read it, I would highly recommend it. And Tim, I didn't know I was the love cat until I read that book. So I think I had the framework around it, but now you put it in perspective and put a label to it. So I appreciate
right on.
That. Yeah.
For our HR friends watching, listening here, love cat, it's not what you think. Love cat is a person who takes great pleasure and finds meaning in helping other people succeed. They do it by mentoring, sharing their network of relationships, and showing up for them.
Perfect. That's great. Yeah. Thanks for that disclaimer, Tim. Appreciate that. All right, let's dive into it here. We want to talk about G2's new buyer behavior report. So the 2025 version just came out. And before we dive into it, Tim, you had mentioned something pretty interesting in that you employed Gen AI at every step. Can you talk a little bit about that and how you did it? And what do you mean at every step? Like even visualizations and things like that too?
Oh yeah. Okay, love to dive into this. I'm full on geek. I am an unapologetic OpenAI homer, as I like to call it. I probably spend 20 hours a week in the tool, whether I'm working with one of the models, now I work with Operator, et cetera, et cetera. When I took over this project, G2's done this 4 times. I wanted to approach it with a fresh set of eyes, so I used generative AI to first understand the focus areas of this year's survey. What I mean by that is I wanted to create kind of an A, B, C, D sequence of questions that would prompt the humans taking the survey to reveal deeper and deeper insights. So we determined that the first thing we wanted to take a look at was the buyer's journey, which we've been looking at for a long time. We wanted to also take a look at the nature of deals, the deal size, the size of the committees. We wanted to look at renewals, but most importantly, we wanted to look at AI's influence on the buyer journey, AI's influence on loyalty, and even value creation. So all of that came from Gen AI. And then what we did is we analyzed which of the questions from the previous 4 surveys should pull through to the new survey for, continuity, enabling year-over-year comparisons. We then figured out the supplemental questions, the best way to word them so they were answerable by the cohort, and even worked on branching and chaining so that the questions would be logical, or we'd be able to screen down cohorts that could actually answer the deeper and deeper questions, say when we asked them about things like AI agents. So when we got the first pass of the survey results using just the crosstabs, I started to do visualizations right away. Not image generation, Dan, because image generation uses diffusion, and it would just be like all the charts would be like the lines wouldn't be clear, it wouldn't be fine. Right. So instead, using the O3 reasoning model, we used matplotlib. For you geeks out there, that's Python code to generate charts. So we generated chart visualizations. Everything I show you today was generated by O3, the model. And it helped me early on as I was writing the report, visualize where the story was based on the data. And then, of course, it matriculated its way into the actual report. So that's just a couple of ways that generative AI was by my side every step of the way.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And I like how you had the differentiation between visualization and image generation. So thank you for that. I think that really helps out.
Sometimes when you're doing, these surveys, as you well know, you might ask them to identify like, what size of company do you work for? And you might be giving them the ability to say, well, many segments like 0 to 50, 50 to 100, 100, 200 goes all the way up to like, 1 million people. And so it won't be you can't make a bar chart out of 15 selections, but you can't just give them 4 because they're too general. But I've used generative AI to conduct groupings so that when I would produce charts, I could neatly say, this goes in SMB, this is mid-market, this is enterprise, this is commercial. We did the same thing for region by being able to group countries into simple regions like North America, EMEA, APAC, as opposed to just asking a person, are you from APAC? Because maybe we want to go out and just do analysis of India. So I also found that generative AI, and in particular the 4.0 Turbo, was really good at doing that with almost zero hallucination rates.
Interesting. So what surprised you the most about letting AI, I guess, co-author, would you say, or however you want to define that? Well, anything that surprised you the most there, Tim?
Its obsession with bias.
Oh, okay.
So it, for whatever reason, and it's probably how it was trained, when you write a question that will lead to a biased answer, it would often flag or caution against that. My experience with analysts previously is you didn't think as much about bias as you would think about response rate, time to get the survey back, and those types of things. Whereas they're saying, oh no, this question may elicit expectation bias. Say if you're asking a person if they're a power user, that's not the right wording for it. Wording that would reduce the bias factor or your confidence interval would be this. And I found them to be, really tenacious at helping me get a survey result that has higher confidence intervals so that the hardcore data people, and just had an executive roundtable earlier today, that want to dive in and challenge it, I feel much better, right, especially around some of the surprising results, that they're actually very defensible and not subject to bias or just survey noise because maybe the N was too small for that particular question, that segmentation.
I guess that's a good surprise, right? So that's a really good benefit of it. In terms of, the headline is AI now stands for always included. What inspired that framing, and why was it important to lead with that this year?
It's the one theme that seems to cut across both the buyers and the sellers of software. If you're a seller, everybody's got AI. Everybody's talking about AI, and everybody has AI features to some extent. So when you look at the marketing messaging, AI is just always included. But when you look at the buyer, it's always included too. It's included from the first step of the buying journey through how they reach their ultimate decision. But more importantly, it's become a key part of what features they expect and what's driving the most churn. Fascinating result, Dan. 50% of enterprise buyers churn from software last year to get better AI from another vendor. Wow. That's fascinating. Wow. Fascinating. Yeah. So it's always included now, even on the buyer side from the beginning to the renewal. So that's what we meant.
Got it. And
it's like butter.
It's like butter.
It's in the meal. It's everywhere, man. It's in dessert, for gosh sakes.
So, let's dive in a little bit more around AI. Every vendor says they have AI, and they claim they have it. If you're looking at a vendor, how can you help discern whether they actually have it versus claiming to have it? And if there's any tips there, I'd love to get your take on that.
I think it's really important because when you think about, what is artificial intelligence? Really, at the end of the day, artificial intelligence is a prediction machine. Yep. It takes information that you have, produces information that you don't have. So it's very easy for a vendor to import some type of prediction, whether it's like really simple, like machine learning, the Nickelback of artificial intelligence these days, a guilty pleasure, even if you believe in it. You don't say it to your friends at a party, especially if it's a nerd party. It might be simple like machine learning. It might be a little bit more advanced, like some form of automation that's enabled by machine learning, like an RPA. It might even be even more dynamic and probabilistic, like generative AI, or it might be agents. So I think when you're buying something, the real question you want to ask yourself is how general or powerful is the AI to help me reach my goals? Because what I'm the most interested in is the artificial intelligence enabling the software to help me achieve my return on investment faster? So is it making it either more accurate? And one of the ways I think about it is if I'm looking at a piece of software, I was just looking at something earlier it had to do with video editing. And I reminded myself, AI does one of three things. There's three disciplines of AI when you think about it. There's optimization, there's personalization, there's automation. It's one of those three. Like we can do the Pepsi challenge. We'll go through it all. It's like boom, boom, boom. So I begin to ask myself, like, what do I need the most? Do I need to optimize the video editing, say, for more viewers and engagement? Do I need to personalize it more? Do I need that kind of functionality so we can make multiple videos for different segments? Or do I need more automation, say, for the video to actually be edited faster, distributed further, et cetera? And then I kind of just landed on, I need to optimize. I want to focus everything on optimizing, et cetera. And then it helped me zero in on the actual features. Now, where this gets tricky is around this concept of agents. Because agents is hard. I mean, if you think everybody's got AI, agents is the hype phrase of the year. Everybody claims to have an agent. And then we kind of get into this like point, and say this is a fake agent, it's a real agent, et cetera. So what I've kind of started to really center around is this idea. If I could show this idea that there's a gradient for agents, Dan. I think I like this.
Yep.
And I think of it like Waze to Waymo, like the Waze app with driving directions. Like with Waze, you get behind the wheel, you put your hands on the wheel, and the app tells you, how to get to the airport on time, and it's pretty amazing.
Right.
But with Waymo, you get in the back seat, Jesus take the wheel.
Yeah.
But it's transformative, right? So when I think about the agent thing, if agents create some sort of action or use some kind of tools, well, chatbots and copilots are using some tools now, and they take an action like searching on your behalf, for example, or creating an image. So I think it's a weak form of agentic. I think we're seeing more intelligent assistants that have some scripting. They have a little bit of guardrail built into them, and they can do a little bit more on your behalf. So you let them actually have some interaction with the real world. You have task agents. Agent Force is a good example. Intercom Fin is a good example. And they actually complete a singular task for you. But then you get these new process agents that have this end-to-end automation. They can conduct multi-turn conversations, say in customer service or sales. That's been really emergent in the last year. But within a few years, what we'll really have is the top of this, the Waymo of agents, where you'll have these system of agents that all you have to do is give it a goal, put the guardrails in place, and it will assemble an entire team of agents to go out and finish the actions with minimal human in the loop, including writing its own system of record. And that's going to change the world, right? We're not there yet. So I keep thinking about how if you understand the gradient, you also kind of understand, do I need a spoon, a shovel, a power shovel, a bulldozer, or a laser cutter? It really depends on what you're trying to work on.
Right.
I don't see that as a maturity model either. I think we'll use all of those in the future, depending on the task.
Yeah, it's interesting. So your advice would be know what you're looking for as you're going in to look at the whatever vendor might be, whether it's your current vendor or additional vendor. That 50% number is going to stick with me, Tim, I think, for a little bit here, because that's so shocking, right? That's I mean, really one of the main reasons they switched vendors is just because of AI capabilities. That's amazing.
That's it. And they were just looking for that functionality with a guaranteed benefit. Maybe they just needed natural language summarization. They needed something to create the prompt or whatever. But yes, you need to know what outcome you're looking for and have enough familiarity with AI to understand, is that machine learning? Is it natural language processing? Is it agentic?
Got it. And that kind of goes along with, in the report, it said 88% of power users say they're willing to pay for AI, right? But
they are
only if they see value. So the compelling ways to show value on the ROI today is, what are some of those ways, do you think?
Well, the easiest way is cost savings. But it doesn't always come true, because cost savings seems to be bespoke to every organization and how much human in the loop they have. Like you theoretically can save money with something, but if you've got a lot of human in the loop, you really don't. You actually create more work, but maybe you're enabling the completion of a project you might have given up on in the past. Classic example here. when we use things like deep research, we would never like take a deep research paper and publish it on our blog.
Right.
Because it's going to have bad citations. So now you got to go through and fact check everything. Now look everything up, make sure 87% was really 87% really primary research. Somebody said to me recently, then why do we even use deep research? I say, because it's more tenacious than you are, right? It'll actually find stuff you'd give up on in the Google Blue Link hell. So I think, the idea there is cost savings is one, but the second thing is enabling growth. And I think that's the bigger thing. So I think when you're selling artificial intelligence, you need to figure out what the growth plans are for the customer and show them the velocity that AI will enable. So can 5 people now do the work of 8? That's an incredibly attractive value proposition. I'm also finding that customers are more likely to renew against that value proposition a year later, because sometimes cost savings disappear into the ether, but growth or the increasing capacity of a team is incredibly sticky. One of the things we found in the research, and I don't believe it actually made the final result, was if you look at the churn rates for like general software, they probably run somewhere between, say, 10 and 14%.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If you look at the churn rates for general AI, like machine learning based pre-LLM AI, they run a little bit lower. They probably run 8 to 12%. Okay. If you look at the churn rate for LLM platforms like OpenAI, Anthropic, Gemini, UiPath, you look at those, churn rate 2 to 3%.
Wow. Crazy.
2 to 3%. It's just the stickiest thing I've ever seen. Why? Because people are learning they can go a lot faster and deliver a lot more without having to add headcount. And that's where it gets attractive. And I think that's a great thing for sellers to focus on moving forward.
Yeah, no, sounds like it for sure. I know, Tim, you had a couple charts you wanted to show and showcase some of the interesting results. I think it might be a good time to do that now if you want to.
So there's some things that surprised me in the research. And one of the things we do every year is we try to get an understanding of like who's really the decision maker and where's money coming from. So, since the advent of OpenAI in late 2022 and this rise of everybody needs to have, a large language model or at least access to it, we've been noticing the C-suite had become an ultimate decision maker, specifically the CFO. And we also learned that the driver of spend was R&D, experimental budgets, discretionary budgets, CEO initiatives, even just OpEx, right? But something changed this year, and I'll show it to you. So as part of this research, I interviewed 36 leaders of technology, CTO, IT, VP, head of technology at private equity firms. And they just think differently, especially when it comes to buying modern AI like Gen AI and agents. Whereas previously finance, executive leadership, even operations who are less at the table, those folks were buying based on ROI. So I invest $20,000 in a subscription. I want to see a 3x return on investment of $60,000. And they thought a lot about that. What's really fascinating is the IT leaders think less about that and more about opportunity loss. And the reason why is because with a generative or an agentic AI, you get so much flywheel velocity out of your tech. Wasting a year on an investment that your people don't use. So it's not the money, it's that my people never adopted your product, so we never had that velocity. We never had that muscle to market, as one IT leader called it. That's what they worry about the most. So as a result, they started to really look into performance of the actual technology and try to anticipate what's the utilization factor going to become. And there's a reason they care so much. And that's what the second thing we found here in the research that I thought was fascinating is that right now, the number one source of funding for all of AI, inclusive of generative, is central IT. In fact, one of the things that didn't make the study is that if you just looked at LLM platforms like buying OpenAI API calls for your, seats for everybody in a massive API package, 78% of the time it came from central IT.
Wow.
So they're writing the check. Why is this the case? As Clayton Christensen would say, this has moved from disruptive to sustaining technologies in most companies' eyes. So now, then that's the reason the churn is going to be so low for these platforms. Now, generative AI and in the very near future, agents, they're a part of how you sustain growth at your company. They're not something new that you're investing in to see if there's a proof of concept like it's been for the last 2 to 3 years. What this means for sellers, what this means for analysts is that you have to learn how to talk tech. One of the big reasons I interviewed 36 plus IT leaders is that we at G2 have traditionally talked to marketing leaders about our products.
Right.
Because marketing leaders thought about buyer intent data, our review growth, and those types of things. But now technology leaders are at the table buying software, and we need to go talk to them about performance. We need to talk to them about hallucination rates, not just of models, but of wrappers, the application layer that uses models like an agent force or an intercom. I find it to be a fascinating transition, but for many people watching, we're only prepared to talk to tech and info security when they have an objection.
Yeah.
But how do we get them excited in the first place about the technology we offer when we're really geared more to talk to marketers about marketing products or sales leaders about revenue products? I find that a fascinating change and a real challenge for sellers moving forward.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing that, to your point, usually the IT comes in later in the buying cycle, right?
Yeah.
When, hey, I want this. Can you give me the rubber stamp that it's okay? And now they're coming on sooner in the cycle. So that's interesting because, in the report, you offer specific recommendations for sellers, like investing in LLM visibility, shortening go-to-market cycles, and leading with ROI. So these things are all very important, but maybe not only in the context of IT, but what do you think which one of these are companies most overlooking, whether it's LLM visibility, shortening go-to-market cycles, or leading with ROI?
So take one hat, put another hat on.
Yep.
If you're a marketer, and let's say you're B2B,
yep,
40% of your digital marketing budget is Google AdWords or something like that, or the agencies that help you implement it.
Yep.
20% of your overall budget, okay?
Right.
It's the biggest single line item in all of your budgets. What they're overlooking, or what they're got too comfortable with, is this migration from using Google search to using chatbots and what we call answer engines like Perplexity, OpenAI Research, Anthropic, Claude, Google Gemini. They felt very comfortable with some of the research that came out last year, like the SEMrushes of the world that looked at like global research of consumers and said, it's just like 1 or 2%. Google's having a banner year for actual number of searches, et cetera.
Right.
Well, generative AI and I both had a thesis that B2B enterprise software buyers would over-index in using the most advanced technology to save them the most time because they're damn busy. And we stumbled into an amazing set of findings with our survey. So the thing that surprised me the most is that when we asked buyers, we said, do these chatbots, do they change the way that you're researching software? 4 out of 5 said it's changed the way I do research now. Okay. Wow. And almost a third of them reported I am far more productive using a chatbot than I am using Google search. And it makes sense. I've even experienced that myself, even as yesterday in researching an iPad holder for video production. I can't believe I went to Google and I wasted time with fake best of, and it's like, I went to the chatbot, got the result, and I'm done. It's changed everything. So now, and this is the most important statistic, 29% of all software buyers now start with one of those chatbots instead of going to google.com when they're beginning the research process. So it's changed radically. I'll show you like just 2 things here that I think are kind of relevant to that conversation here. So the first thing I'll show you is if you ask people, like, what do you rely on when you're doing research for software solutions? We cut it by, size of company. And the fascinating story here, Dan. So SMB, it's still Google. That's their honeysuckle. That makes sense. But when you go to mid-market, all of a sudden Google's winning, but not by much. But when you get to enterprise and then you get to large enterprise, Google's running 3rd place. Wow. Okay. This wasn't the case last year. It's going to get worse next year. So what you're seeing is they're looking for cheat codes. So the reason they like a software review site is because you can get instant signals. You can see grids. You can see at a glance in category set of comparisons. That's just faster than having to navigate something else. But AI search has come on the scene quickly as being one of the most relied on sources because we've learned to do it in other places. But the reason this is interesting to me too is the bigger companies where this is most dominant, this is where layoffs have happened the most because obviously it's a great way to pump the stock. It's a great way to be more efficient. Then you're not backfilling turnover. You're also stretching people to do more work. Most people that buy software, that's not what they do. Only 8% are in procurement. The rest of them are like you and me. We don't have time for this. So in this new busy world, sure, I'm going to use OpenAI, ChatGPT-4 every single time now. That's really interesting. Last thing I'll show you, and this is like really crazy. So when you say what created this famous vendor shortlist, which we say now is about somewhere between 4 and 6 is how the shortlist looks like to buy particular software products. Number 1 this year, chatbots.
Wow.
Chatbots now number 1. And so what I've kind of figured out here is we kind of learned this from consumer behavior. It's like 3 best steakhouses downtown Chicago, go. OpenAI comes back and says, it's these 3. You say, cool. 3 drones under $1,000, go. It comes back and says, these 3. You say, fine. One more question. Best CRM solution for a hospital that's under $50,000 a year sub, go. And it goes, here you go.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how they're creating their shot list. So my son would say they're one-shotting the short list.
Yeah.
So what I took away from all of this is that, man, if you're in the software business, you better win that large language model first moment of discovery. And one of the things I've learned is that, yes, when you are asking it to do something, you see the little web search happen and it thinks, and it's probably hitting an index. So OpenAI is probably hitting the Bing index. Gemini and Anthropic are probably hitting the Google index. What most people don't know is it's not using Boolean search keywords. It's using prompt questions. Now, us marketers, we were taught not to do all these extraneous words for the, of, and, except, like an actual question. We say, just give us the keywords. But when the large language models are looking at these indexes doing web search, they're asking the question and they're simulating multiple versions of the prompt because they're not looking for top links. They're looking for what's called the web of consensus, the consensus of opinion that confidently returns the best answer. And that's going to be a transformational challenge for marketers.
Got it. So they'll look at more, like sites like G2, right? Where there's directories and things like that are that source of truth. Is that sort of your thesis there, Tim? Or?
We're doing very well.
Yeah.
We found out recently that we are about 7% of the source of all data they use for prompts right now. And I mean, that's like at a global level, we're probably a much greater percentage of that. So we've been measuring how much we are cited as the source of the software recommendation, and we're seeing a steady increase. But one of the things we've learned is that large language models really like natural language. They like G2 because the reviews are written like you and I are talking. They like Reddit because people are writing like you and I are talking. What they don't like are vendor websites because they're not like you and I talking. They're like corporate department of compartment, and it's like they write everything like marketing messaging. It's another reason we've seen the analyst firms like Gartner and Forrester take a huge step back with respect to LLM performance because they write like boomers like me, and they just don't talk like natural language and large language models. That's what resonates with them. So one of the big pieces of advice is make sure you're showing up in the G2s and the Reddits of the world in those natural language discussions. And as a marketer, you want to own some of your audience too. So if you've ever thought about investing in user-generated content, community, et cetera, it's a really good time to try to go do that, to try to improve the ability for a large language model to actually point to your site. Because the one piece of good news here, Dan, for vendors is that what we've learned in this research is once they do come to the vendor website, they've already done a lot of research between software review, large language models. So there's a lot of conviction. So they're actually showing up to talk to somebody about buying the thing. So we're seeing that the closing rates are almost 5% higher for an LLM first software review verified, vendor website pathway. So that's the good news. If you can just figure out that LLM first moment of discovery, your business will still grow. You just won't grow because you're getting traffic. It'll grow because you're generating conviction upstream.
Yeah. And who doesn't like more educated buyers coming to you, right? So
Who doesn't like more
Yeah, who
educated
does?
buyers? Like, I just need to talk to a salesperson to understand the rate cards.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Well, Tim, you said that AI or prediction machines, right? Gen AI is prediction machines. I want you to be a prediction machine now. And if we did this podcast in a year, what's one stat or shift you would expect to be talking about in the report next year?
You know, obviously, I've kind of flagged some things that I think are going to absolutely be profound next year. So next year, we'll just see AI search even be more and more and more dominant, like especially with Google turning on AI mode. But that's not going to be a surprise now. Cat's out of the bag.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things we flagged in the report that I think will become a very, very profound finding by the time we get here next year will be this idea that we haven't talked about yet. It might be as early as next year. It's certainly going to be 2027, but subscription is going to die. Large upfront mega deals are going to die. And what you're going to see is you're going to see a couple of things happen really quickly. You're going to see most software products turn into a very AI-enabled product. And the customer, as you see here right now, it's 39% prefer pay-as-you-go. I expect that number, hang on to your seat, Dan, it'll double between now and next year to 78%.
Wow.
It's currently a dogfight going on between usage-based and outcome-based. I mean, the customer would prefer outcome-based. The vendor would prefer user-based, usage-based. I believe it'll end up being usage-based. I believe that this time next year, the most popular enterprise purchase package will be credits.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Usage credits. They might be called tokens. They might be called minutes. It might be called compute units. But I think that's how the model is going to shift. There won't be such a thing as renewal. As a matter of fact, there won't be churn. There'll be soft churn. I believe the most important salespeople a year from now will not be the account executives. It'll be the account managers, because the game is going to be utilization increase based on demonstrative value and really satisfying IT to the point where they deeply infuse your AI throughout the organizations. And here's the great news. The great news is this. Because of Model Context Protocol, if you haven't heard of it, just go Google MCP. It's going to change everything. Mm-hmm. AI can go find the data and the applications, and we're not going to have to write APIs and integrations anymore. So all of a sudden, if you write the right AI and all it lacks is data and access to tools, that's going to take care of itself. What you've got to figure out is a go-to-market that's not based on salespersonship and closing deals. It's really based on defining your TAM, learning the signals, finding someone, getting them to trial and then scale up the actual usage. That's where you're going to see the real growth come in the future. And I think subscriptions will be relegated to non-AI centric products in the future. And that's what I think will be the game changer.
Well, Tim, that's quite a prediction. So I appreciate that bold prediction there. Hey, this has been a ton of fun. I appreciate all the insight, and I learned a lot, even though I read the report, just talking with you. So I know our listeners will get a lot of value out of this. If people want to know more about you, follow you, where are you, and what are the best channels to do that?
Just put in Tim Sanders G2 at LinkedIn. Come get me.
All right, there we go. All right, thanks, Tim. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.